I'll get back to the chamber in a minute, but early on we kind of mentioned the Main Street program. Could you kind of tell us what the Main Street program is all about?
Absolutely. We just celebrated 2 weeks ago, Saturday, 20 years of Main Street program here in De Pere. Started back in 1990. The Main Street program is under the large umbrella of the National Trust for Historic Preservation. And the trust started their National Main Street Center 23 years ago with the idea that if we're going to preserve America, we have to preserve our downtowns, and we need to do that in a very coordinated way, and they have a 4-point approach they came up with that's been proven over time to work. So it's actually under the trust. There are state Main Street programs that we get assistance from, although they consider us, after 20 years, we're not just a graduate program, we're a senior program. We're well into our 20-year alumni reunions. So we don't get the services that new communities get, but we do get services from the state. The purpose of Main Street is to focus on the health and vitality of downtown. It's not all that we do as an organization, but the Main Street program serves that core, because if your core of your community, as you know, isn't growing and isn't vital, it seems to take on this life of its own that makes the rest of the community not feel like it's doing well if downtown isn't functioning well.
I think we've had over the years about 5 directors in 20 years,
Yes.
something like that. I think that means it's a pretty stressful job. How are you handling the stress, and can we expect you to be here for quite a while?
The actual lifespan of a Main Street director is 18 months. 18 months.
Well, we've done well.
We've done really well, and I think it's because of the commitment of people who have been involved, especially some of the heavy hitters, the 800-pound gorillas. We've had very, very good relationship with the city and with departments of the city. And you and your predecessor have been tremendous assets to the program. A lot of communities who have Main Streets don't have that, and the Main Street program is expected to do absolutely everything on its own with no support. We haven't had that issue here. Depending on the time of year, stress is a little higher. In September, around Fall Fest, it'll be pretty stressful, but we get through it.
Oh, that's good. I know that when we first started the Main Street program back in 1990, we had a very low occupancy rate as far as businesses in our downtown, empty buildings, if you will. Can you enlighten us a little bit as to maybe what that occupancy rate was then and how we've improved to where we are today?
It's really amazing what's happened, and I take no credit for it. I inherited a Main Street program that had done just amazing things. There were blocks, went back in the 90s when Main Street started, in many blocks that had 80% vacancy ratings in downtown. The Lee building had the Lee department store had closed. There was no Lee building at the time. It was just an empty department store. The Lawton Foundry, which are now the Lawton Apartments, had closed. James Street Inn was an old mill. The Reed Street Crossing and the Stelflug Law, the Marquette Center buildings didn't exist. The Humana building didn't exist. The Bemis Center didn't exist. This building did not exist. So it was over that 20-year period, through a lot of hard work and dedication and some risk-taking by some people, that have brought us to where we are now. And the numbers that we hear from the downtown consultant that we've been working with is we're somewhere around 6% vacancy overall in the downtown, which is just tremendously low, and brings about an interesting problem, is that we don't have a vacancy problem. We have a capacity problem now. We often hear we should have a Trader Joe's, and I agree. I love Trader Joe's. We don't have the space for it right now, so we'd have to build a building and figure those things out. Those are nice problems to have in the downtown.
I know a lot of communities wish they had that problem, and
absolutely.
I think the success of the Main Street program really goes to show you that if everyone's on the same page and pulling in the right direction, you can have a very successful program. And as you mentioned earlier, the downtown is the lifeblood of a community, and with that 80% vacancy rate in 1990 was a very difficult road to hoe at that point. Yeah. And but hopefully we don't become victims of our own success, because some of the same problems could come back.
Absolutely.
now that we had in 1990, and if we don't continue to work together, it's going to be hard to continue to make De Pere a better place. And I think we've been very successful in that regard and hope to continue that. What kind of vision does the Chamber and Main Street have for the future of our downtown and really the city as a whole?
Well, for downtown, as you know, we've been very involved in the downtown master plan process that we've been working with the consultants RDG over the course of about a year now that we've been into this. Maybe it's only been 6 months. It just feels like it's been a year. Because we wanted to get done. We're ready for that report to come out so we can take those next steps. So we're very anxious, for that to come out so we can see what that 5-year, 10-year, 20-year plan is so we can get on it. I know you and I are both anxious to get moving because we're ready to take that next step and make sure that we don't take a step back, which you're right, could very easily happen if we're not careful. And many people do think that downtown's done. We've done 20 years, downtown's fixed, we can move on to other things, but it's never done and it's never fixed. And even if you were to, when you look at isolated blocks in the downtown, there's work to be done. And I'm really excited about getting those things done. And I think our vision is to make all areas of downtown as vibrant and exciting as this area here where we're at the Crest Family Library and the area between James Street and the roundabout on Broadway and the Reed Street crossing area and Humana area over on the west side. Really get all of those things functioning together. There's some really exciting possibilities coming up that we're looking forward to being involved in.
Sure, I think I'd really like to see a full occupancy in the downtown, yes. Having us continue to fill the niche that we actually do, not only here but in really Brown County, in making us a destination place. Yes. And do a little bit of clustering that's been brought up, yes. with RDG, and becoming a lot more pedestrian friendly than we are right now. Yes. And I think those are all lofty goals that hopefully will come out of this downtown plan that RDG is putting together for us.
One of the things that speaking of the clustering,
sure.
our buildings and business inventory is a project that we've been working on for just about a year now. And getting a complete inventory of all the businesses and all of the buildings in our downtown and actually with our greater area, which isn't nearly as easy as you would think. You would think you could just drive along and count the buildings and look at the business names and put them in a database and you're done, except that nobody stays still. So as soon as we get it done, we get to start it again. Mm-hmm. And then our next goal for that is to then have it be, we're working on the technical part of this, but to make it an online resource so that if somebody wants to put a business in downtown or anywhere in the city and they don't know exactly where they want to go or maybe even what they want to do, that they could go to this database, they could look at the area that maybe they're thinking of or where there's a vacancy at and pull up a clustering map so they know what's there. There's this many restaurants and there's this many hairstyle salons and there's this many bookstores and what would fit in there and do some of those that kind of clustering that really makes businesses work well together. So we're really anxious to get that project done, but the technology behind it's much more complicated than I would think it should be.